A very good evening to every one of us. We thank you for making time to join us. Tonight, we are having Honorable Fritz Baffour on the show, and we will be discussing post-election stress, coping with the loss and win. I'd like to share a brief profile about Honorable Fritz Baffour. Currently the host of I Have a Story to Tell on Z 101.9 FM on every Tuesday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Honorable Fritz Baffour is well known as a communication consultant, journalist or media personality, and a politician. Focusing on his political life, Honorable Baffour was involved with the just sworn-in government, that's the National Democratic Congress, from its inception in 1991. He was the Member of Parliament for Ablikuma South Constituency in the Greater Accra region from 2009 to 2017 and served as the Minister for Information during the Mills administration in 2012. His well-equipped leadership skills earned him appointments to serve on the boards and governing councils of several corporate organizations, both domestically and internationally. These bodies included him serving as chairman on the Defense and Interior Committee from 2013 to 2017 or 2017. He also served as the chairman of the National Museums and Monuments Board, member of Board of Directors of the National Theatre of Ghana, board member, Ghana Nuclear Research Institute, board member, Kolebu Teaching Hospital, acting managing director of Ghana Tourist Development Company, and consultant and director of Sheraton Hotel in Lagos, Nigeria, just a few to mention. Now, his life as a media personality saw him work as an independent director and producer at the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. He also worked with Liberian television, where he covered wars in Liberia and Rwanda, Nigerian television, Time Tees TV UK, diverse production in UK, and back-to-back productions in the USA. He was also a media consultant to the government of the late Jerry John Rawlings. As an entertainer, Honorable Baffour is well known for his comedy skills with his audience in West Africa and beyond. Recognized for his impact in several awards and citations over the years, the Ghana Armed Force granted him an award for his distinguished service and contribution to bridging the gap between the forces and the public in 1997. He also won the Tourism Marketing Campaign Award for the year 1997 from the Ghana Tourist Board. In addition, Honorable Baffour is a recipient of a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Advertising Association of Ghana in 2018. And he was a member of the National Media Commission, that's NMC, from 2009 to 2017. He is a proud recipient of an enviable award from the management of Night Shift Lagos, Nigeria in 2006 for his contribution to entertainment and comedy in Nigeria. Honorable Baffour is the author of After Midnight Musings of the Ghanaian Politician, published in 2017. It was in this same year that he was installed as the Noya Manche of Akweman in March, also 2017. And with his first-hand experience as a politician, he's going to be sharing with us just a quick one. He's going to be sharing with us the stress politicians face during and after elections, the impact of results on politicians, That's managing the loss after investing many resources during elections. What goes into managing the high expectations of citizens when one emerges as a winner his or her constituency? We'll also come to him addressing the citizens. And so thank you so much for this again. Honorable Fritz Baffour, please, you may proceed with your presentation of taking us through what politicians go through, the stress they have to manage throughout. Please. Thank you very much.
Hello?
Hello, Honorable, please, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I'd like to say good evening to everybody, especially those in my time zone because of my, I'd like to start now. But before I do that, I'd like to correct a little error in your presentation that I'm the host of I Have a Story to Tell. I am, but the time has been changed to Tuesdays from 7 to 8. And I'd like to say that we have taken a break and will resume in February or late January. Now, as to the subject at hand, which is about stress, post-election stress, I have to go back to pre-election stress. When one decides in Ghana to become, to be nominated as a member of parliament, that's when the stress starts because you have to start politicking. And in 2007, when I decided that I would stand as the candidate for the National Democratic Congress in 2000 for the 2008 elections, I had to go through the primaries, which in itself is very, very stressful because you're dealing with at that time an electoral college of about 540 people in the constituency, and you have to cater to their expectations. And the expectations are not just about convincing them to for you, but there's an expectation of some material support in terms of what to get them to vote for you, which means that you've got to go and see them individually. And you also have to go around to the constituency at large, especially members of your party, to introduce yourself as a worthy candidate for nomination. And that is very stressful. So you have to look for the resources to back your nomination expectations. And you also meet some form of people look at you and will not be too happy. Those who are not supportive of you, you'll get some form of insults and negative reaction, which also affects the your psyche and your personality, because I mean everybody likes to be liked. So a very difficult thing. So that basically is from the for the primaries, and the primaries itself, you've got to cater to a lot of people on the day of the primaries. People who want to come to vote for you will expect that you pay for their transport and also their what we call TNT in Ghana, which in itself is stressful. So you have to go to people, people who support you, and you've got to ask for or request for help. And that in itself is stressful because if you have a certain respect for yourself. You don't want to go a begging, but in some cases you have to. And the expectation of being refused adds to the stress levels. Anyway, in my case, in 2007, December 2007, I was nominated the candidate for the NDC in my constituency of Ablika Stout, where I live. And so I live in the constituency, unlike a lot of our politicians, and I still live there. So you will have the stress and the pressure of people coming to your house with their needs in terms of they have problems, social, physical, whatever problems, and they come to you for help, and that in itself is a burden on you in terms of mental burden on you. So in 2007, I became the candidate for the NDC, and the election campaign started. I had to arrange to have a campaign office. I had to employ campaign staff. I had to pay them. I had to send people out to go and campaign on my behalf. I had to put together a campaign plan and put together the message to go around and all that. And that adds to your burden on your mental health. And so it intensifies as the election comes very close, because with the election itself, there are a lot of things that you have to do. So then you go into the election. You have to arrange to ensure that you are not cheated. You've got to make sure that your election is an acceptable endeavor. And so in December 2008, I was elected. And at that time, my party was not the party of the constituency. So I had to overturn the majority of the largest opposition party at the time, which was the governing party at the time, the NPP, which I did. And then there were my major opponent went to court to say that my election was not legal, or he had objections, but he lost the court, and the court proceedings to give you that kind of pressure, because you have to go to court, you have to make sure you've got a lawyer, you've got to put your case together. So that in itself is a mental burden. I'm doing this with very little support from my political party, because we've been working on it since then for the support of candidates. And then you go into Parliament, and in Parliament, you now got to deal with a greater whole, everybody, regardless of political affiliation, gender, what have you. So your constituents come to you, and you've got to deal with them. In my case, I set up an office, and I employed staff, and I used the proceeds from my professional work as a media producer and a consultant to finance my office, while I was also a member of Parliament. And sometimes I take money from my salary to ensure that I deliver to my constituents in terms of their needs. Now, later on, I went through the same process in 2012, and in 2013. Again, I was victorious, and it was the same cycle. Post-election stress is very, 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 very. It's a real thing. It's a reality, because the pressure from your constituencies, and when you have a country where there isn't a social cushion for those who are indigent or who haven't access to certain resources in the country, they rely on you, because you come to them asking them to vote for you. And when you don't have a system of health support, of financial support, and all that in terms of a national system, then you become at least the first point of call for a lot of people. So in reality, that is what it is. And it is also a burden on your family. My wife and my children sometimes had to go without because I had to use my resources for other things. Then you have the situation of them being known, and you have the situation of their security, because it's not everyone who has good intentions towards your personage and your family. So, coupled with all these things, it is a very, very stressful situation to be in. And I must say that when I retired from politics, elective politics, in 2017, my blood pressure, which at a certain time I was actually taking blood pressure medicine, my blood pressure was quite high. As soon as I left, within 3, 4, 5 months, my blood pressure had come down to normal. And so I had to reduce the dosage of blood pressure medicine that I was taking every day. So that in a short is a summary of the effects of post-election stress on my personal example. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. We are grateful for sharing this in-depth personal experience with us. Now, onto the citizens. What would you like to let us know? After elections, we have high expectations of members of parliament we've elected to come and serve us. Any words for us? Whereas it looks like the citizens as well have their own pressures when their candidate wins or when they lose. How can we best manage okay.
Well,
thank you.
Well, it's unfortunate that the most of the political parties in Ghana are cash strapped. So the onus is on you to raise most of the resources. In the last few years, since I left, I've seen that the parties have upped their game in supporting their candidates during the election process. But the expectations of the constituents is what I mentioned, that you have, especially in my constituency, which is a peri-urban constituency, with high incidence of poverty. I come from, in Ablikwa South, we have a fishing community that is going through great rigors because of overfishing and environmental degradation. You also have slums or in the underdeveloped areas where people are needy. And you also have a situation where people have expectations of their children for their children. They want you to help them pay their children's school fees, health concerns, and things like that. Apart from your work as a member of parliament, there's also an expectation that you are a development agent, and therefore you've got to bring roads and help with infrastructural development, which is not really the job of a member of parliament, because you're a lawmaker. You have to go to parliament. You sit in the chamber, the plenary, which is only you live in. You work. You go to the chamber. The chamber is only 1/5 of the work of a member of parliament, the official work of a member of parliament, because you're a member of committees, so you have to go to committee sessions, and you've got to travel for seminars. You've got to travel for political awareness programs and things like that. So again, another stressful aspect is that you're you're driving all over the country. And in 2000 and I think it was 2011, I had an accident. I was coming from Tamale, where I'd gone to do some work on behalf of the party and the country. And I had a car accident which destroyed my car. I nearly lost my life. My car was total. So there are all kinds of things that happen as a result of the work that we do, and the lack of the infrastructural development in the country, the social development and social interventions in the country that affect and increase the toll on our members of parliament. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, please, I can. Thank you so much. And so I'd like to ask, and I believe we all would like to know, how were you able to manage throughout all these stress experiences during your term in office as a politician, an active politician?
Well, what helped me was that I decided to put aside some of my personal resources from the work that I was doing as a media producer and a consultant, because I was allowed by Parliament to have to continue with my profession. And so I put some of the resources aside to set up an office. And I was one of the few MPs who had an office dedicated to my constituents with staff. And that took the load off me. And I was very fortunate because I had a sister who is a social activist. And so she took over that aspect of meeting with my constituents to help with their social and physical concerns. And it took the load off me. I also had an engineer employed who would deal with the various government services in search of the infrastructural needs of my people. So that took a little bit of the load off me. But most of the time, they really wanted to see me. But as I said, I was just fortunate that I had a profession that was that brought some kind of returns, and so I could use the returns to support my endeavors as a member of parliament.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Please, participants, anyone with any questions for Honorable Fritz, please. Kindly use the raise hand button and you would be called to ask your question. Thank you. Or you may leave it in the chat box, please. Thank you. And so, Honorable, please, whilst we look forward to questions, may I ask, what's your advice or guidelines for those, the National Democratic Congress government has taken over today, President and the Vice President were sworn in. What would you like to say to them, and then also other members of parliament? Any advice, guidelines to help them curb the stress?
Yeah, I'm not. I do not restrict the advice and the suggestions to only my party. Once you go into parliament, you become friends to the people from all the different sections of parliament itself, the people who are not even in your party. So it's not really, it's not, it's, and so the advice I would normally give is that you can't take the endeavor of wanting to be a member of parliament very lightly. It's a life-changing endeavor. And so therefore you have to put a lot of thought into it. You've got to be prepared, because there are double whammies that could come from anywhere in terms of the work that you do. But you have to be very serious, and you have to make sure that you have an assessment of the kind of resources you have available to help. You also have to look at where you can get the resources, and in all times very legally, because at the end of it all, when you're appointed or you become a public official, you're subject to the rigors of the law. And I know that people have perceptions that a lot of the politicians are corrupt and will engage in corrupt practices. But I can assure you that in the 8 years I was in Parliament, I never saw any real evidence of my fellow politicians or myself engaging in something that would be looked on as corruption. I'm saying this very, very seriously. If it happened on my blind side. But in my case, I realized that I was a little fortunate because I was a professional and a seasoned professional at that. And therefore, with the support of my family, especially my wife, who also had a job, she had a business, and members of my family, I was able to survive the pressures.
Very well, thank you very much. So please a quick one. Okay, Mr. Kwesi Sams, please you have your hand raised. Kindly go on with your question or contribution.
Yes. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Good evening to everyone. And Honorable Fritz Baffour, thank you for your submission. I have this question. Working on human beings has seemed to be one of the most difficult jobs ever on earth. So I wanted to know, as you were a member of parliament, or even till now, what kind of psychological support is given to these our MPs and the ministers and all that? If you are aware of that, if you can.
Yeah, that's an excellent question.
Yeah.
For a long time, the perception that being a successful candidate at the elections meant that you were privileged. And so from the various organizations that you dealt with, your political party and parliament itself, there was very little to support you in terms of psychological support. It's now changing with the present speaker, the Right Honorable ASK Bagbin, who had been a member of parliament from the inception of the Fourth Republic to, he was the longest serving member of parliament. He became a deputy speaker and then became the speaker. He recognized the needs of members of parliament, and he did quite a lot. He's been doing quite a lot to ensure that there is some psychological support. I must say that when you become a member of parliament, you are helped with acquiring a good means of transport. You're helped with acquiring accommodation. In my case, I already had my accommodation, so I didn't avail myself of that opportunity. But you are given some kind of financial support to settle in. That is about it. But then we also have caucuses, groups of parliamentarians with various interests. Some are cross-political. For instance, if you have the Greater Accra Caucus, it's members of parliament who come from the Greater Accra region, irrespective of your political party. We meet and we sit down and discuss issues that are germane to us. So we in that case, that is it. But I think late in the last days, I'm seeing that Abu Magbin is pushing for certain initiatives which will give support to parliamentarians in terms of training, in terms of their expectation, in terms of their well-being, both mental and physical. And I think that I'm sure that within the next 4 years, we'll have a substantial support system for members of parliament.
Thank you very much, Honorable.
Well, thank God. Thanks very much for that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kwesi Sounds, also for your questions. Okay, so Mr. Tampori Solomon, before I read this, I would like to announce that at 7:35 we'll go for a brief break and then we'll return. to continue. So Mr. Tampori Solomon, he's asking, what are the signs and symptoms of stress that politicians face? Please, Mr. Tampori, please, can you come clear again with your question, please? Okay, so while we look forward to Mr. Solomon's question, Honorable, please, I'd like to ask, was there ever a time where you were quite overly stressed that you felt I wouldn't want to use the word regret, but you felt you would have opted out to save your psychological self, please? Was there ever a time you thought, oh,
Well, as a human being, yes, naturally you're working for other people, and at this time you're working for a collective of people. My constituency at that time was in my first term, was one of the largest constituencies in Ghana, and so therefore you were getting requests either of assistance or for interaction, and so sometimes you were overburdened, and yes, sometimes there'll be loss of temper, loss of your equanimity. And so you have those occasions, but they were very few and far between because I had gone into this thing prepared. And I did state at the beginning to my party members that I was going to go for 2 terms. I mean, that is if I was elected the second time. At the end of that period, I would retire, because I had gone into elective politics a little late in life. I would think I was about 56, 57, and I retired at the age of 65, which I thought was good enough for me. I'd done so many things with the hope that I was contributing to the development of Ghana and that in Africa. And going into Parliament was one aspect of my contribution. So at the end of the 8 years, the 2 terms, I left. But I must say that, as I said, it was stressful because you're dealing with human beings and their needs and their requirements are diverse, and not all of them can't meet all of them. And so therefore, there was sometimes a sense that you were not contributing enough. And the sense of failure can affect your psychological makeup. So that is very true, yes.
very well. Thank you so much. And the observations I made or I did yesterday, midnight, during the swearing in of the members of parliament, the proceedings, I realized that tempers were actually rising high, and with you having such had experienced in your time of active politics, how were you able to manage yourself up when a core MP is acting out of character or quote unquote raising issues that are out of context or on quote unquote again, probably not needed or necessary at that present moment? How are you able to hold up yourself to not probably get angry?
Well, I must admit that those kind of encounters and those kind of things that happen in the chamber tend to peter out as soon as you leave the chamber. Very rarely do we carry the emotional burden as a result of a negative interaction in the chamber outside the chamber, because you're going into committees, you're going into meetings which are consensual. And so therefore you have to have some kind of positive, you have to feel positive towards whoever you're dealing with. The chamber can sometimes be, sometimes give the wrong impression, because it is more like a theater. And so there's a lot of grandstanding. And so if you're aware that some people are grandstanding, in the chamber, you're being filmed, you're being televised, you're doing it in the public, and everybody has a reaction to the kind of things they want to do in politics. And so what happened yesterday, I thought was grandstanding, and I don't think anybody carried it outside. But then we are partisan, and therefore, if we feel that our partisan interests are threatened, we will react, and sometimes that reaction is negative. But we rarely carry it as individuals. Maybe as collectives, we may carry it out, and therefore it will spill out into the public domain, and you'll get reports and commentaries on the media, the social media with negative comments being made and all those kind of things. But that is also part of this human reactions and interactions bring about those kind of responses.
Very well. Thank you so much, Honorable Fritz Baffour. Please, any questions from any or one of us? Kindly use the raise button so that we call you to ask your question, or you may please leave your question in the chat box. Like I mentioned before, we'll be going on at about 3 minutes break and return at 7:40 or 7:45 to continue. Other than that, if there is no question, then it means we'll have to end the session for tonight. Thank you. Okay. Honorable, please. So we'll be returning at 7:41, a 3 minutes break.
Yeah. All right. I'll be on standby.
Thank you. So please, when the call drops or the meeting call drops, please let's rejoin and continue the session. Thank you once again for your time. Honorable, really appreciate your time in sharing your first-hand experience with us this evening. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.